research, and she's well known globally and also locally for her research. She was a former executive director at the Central Office of Research, and we are happy to have her. She's one of the most cited authors in Nigeria, currently the most cited author in OAU. But she won't be talking to us today as a dentist. She'll be talking to us more as somebody who has been in this business of research, particularly impactful research in Nigeria and also across Africa for a very long time. So it's for me a big honor to welcome the speaker for today in person of Professor Oluwatoyin Morenike Okon to take us through this. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, my boss. It's a pleasure to be here and actually to note that he delegated this for me to speak. Thanks everyone that is here, and thanks for those coming. I took up this topic but because it's a passionate topic for me. I think there's one big thing I'll stand on or build on that Professor Akiemi noted. He said I was a dentist, a trained dentist, but I am also a researcher. I think my mantra, which I very well share, and I'm hoping you learn here, is that we can all have a specialty. That doesn't make us researchers. Anybody can be a researcher, and anybody in the academia, the business is research. Whether you're a student, undergraduate, postgraduate, master's, PGD, non-academic staff, your business is research. No other person can do that business like you. It's true that in the field, we talk about three things that the academia should be doing: research, community service, and teaching. Yet research is the core. Research informs the community, teaching research informs the lecture. I'll be talking about that towards the end of the session. But more importantly, the research is the one that changes the country, national development. Every single country that has grown and grown exceptionally well is the research. But it's, I think one of the sad things that I think we expect in the country is that research should grow because we're waiting for the government to invest in it. But go look at other places. The government invests in it because the research is directing and informing the government to act. And then the government believes in it. So if we've not seen research take its rightful place in Nigeria, it's because we as academia has failed as elites to direct the government in the way to go. The direction is not waiting for funding so that you can make impact. No, it's for you to make impact. Show the government that this is critical, and then they will take it serious. Do research, give them white papers, which you're already doing, but we can do better. So this is where I stand. This is where I'm coming from, and this is where my session will be going, taking us forward. So for the next 1 hour, I'm not going to speak for 1 hour. We'll be defining research. We'll be talking about the core mission of research within the academic sphere. We'll be looking at research impact on the society. This for me is the big deal and where we handcuff the symbiotic relationship between research lecture and community service, and the challenges and the pathway forward. So what truly is research? What truly is research? For those of us here, I think it's very important to understand that, and I'll spend a lot of time around this, understanding what research is. Research, ironically, is not about garnishing papers for promotion. And that's not what OAU stands for. That has never been OAU stand. One of the things that has made this university outstanding and had other universities copy us in many ways, including the creation of the Central Office of Research, including creating the science lab. IFE was the very first, including developing a research policy. It was IFE that ever did it first. It's because we are focused on research as a quest for knowledge to make changes happen. Please note, and like I say everywhere, every single university in Nigeria was developed, that was established by the national government. That means federal government institutions called university or research institutions. There are other institutions that are not universities, and something like NIPRID, NIMA. There are quite a number of research institutions in Nigeria that are not just universities. But every single research institution, when the government established it by an edit, go check it. One big thing that is there is that it is for national development. That is why it was established. So if we don't have national development, please note that it's a failure of the research institution not doing what it's supposed to do, and not the government itself. I tell people, if you say, for example, a common thing I hear, you are in the academia, you are an elite, you are special, you're top thinkers, your thinking is above average, you are problem solvers. And then you say you're not doing research because you don't have funds. It's an irony because you're supposed to solve the problem. What is the problem? You can't publish because you don't have a piece to solve the problem. It's a problem, it's a research problem, solve it. So those are the kind of things research are. They're supposed to be structured inquiries that solves problems. Asking novel questions, developing hypotheses, testing and analyzing, and drawing evidence-based conclusion that changes norms. We'll be going through it. Of course, for you to succeed in research, and I was on PG's platform yesterday afternoon listening, you can't do this without critical thinking. Nobody is born with critical thinking. You can develop to become a critical thinker. You can develop to become creative. You are not born with it. You develop the skills. It's just like crossword puzzles. You're not born to solve crossword puzzles, but people. Okay, I don't know what happened, but I hope you heard me to the point that nobody is born to be an expert crossword puzzle solver. You
Yes,
become,
please. Okay.
thank you, sir. You become an expert crossword solver because you engage with crossword puzzle solving all the time. People become excellent chess players because they engage with chess playing all the time. You become an excellent researcher because you engage with research all the time. And research has its rudimentaries. We're going to go through that now and help us see that you, whoever you are in the academia, can be a researcher. There is no specialty called researcher. There are specialties called pediatric dentistry, economics, anthropology, but there's no specialty called researcher. However, the skill to be a researcher is very much vested in the academia with the purpose of changing the society. The society changes you've seen so far today is because of research. Like I always say, and you must have heard me in other places, look at Malaysia, look at India, look at Japan, look at China today. What you're seeing is the output of research. And therefore, every single one of you on this platform cannot complain of anybody in government if your work, called research, is not imputing it. One of the things you'll also appreciate with the with OAU, very different from every other university, not because of the song we sing, but because of our philosophy, is that the philosophy around research is not publish or perish. It's publish and flourish. And the system and support to make that life is available, and hopefully before the end of the series of lectures, you would have engaged with the entire systems and structures that allows every single person in Ife to publish and flourish. So going forward, please note, like I noted, the heartbeat of research of the university is research. I'll go back again. I'll step back again, and towards the end, I'll step forward. In the university, we're supposed to teach. We're supposed to engage in community service and do research. I tell people you don't have the skills to teach like those in NCE. They are professional teachers. They have been trained as a professional teacher, yet to teach. But you know what, in university, you're supposed to lecture based on your research outputs to challenge your students to think differently, not to copy notes and bring it to them, because it is actually your research that should inform those textbooks that people in secondary schools copy. Is your research that you form the textbook that the primary school teachers copy. That is what your research is. This is not for you to copy textbooks and go to the class. In the class, your research should become the fundamentals, challenging your students to think. You're not copying notes and dictating notes to them. You're engaging them in creative initiative thinking, thinking outside the box and inside the box and tearing the box and creating new boxes. You push the boundary of what is known. Learn how to think and what to think. That is what you do with research in the academia. Nobody comes into your class and leaves the class the same. because they must have been engaged to think about by questioning established norms and then think around what it is to create new norms or validate existing norms. That takes me to what research is in the next series of slides. So in effect, what I've shared is that the academia is three-legged stool. It's an interconnected pillar. Research is not separate for a university mission. It is the foundation of everything the research is. It is our life. We're an elite club. We're elitists that should be changing national development. And what is it that we're doing with research that changes development of a nation? We'll be talking about that. So your research should inform the teaching with the latest knowledge and provide expertise for the services of the community. I'll give an example. I remember once, and for a long time, I still do, but not like in my earlier days, when I worked so much in the advocacy field. You know what my peers will do? They will be in the forefront, in the field, whether it's in South Africa or before the government making arguments. I am at the back. So once they are asking those questions with the government, they're contacting me, telling you wherever they are in the world, then I am giving them excellent information, real talk time information. And then they're always asking them, how do you always know this? Why are you always on top of the issue? Why? Because they were engaging with the academia, who are expert knowledge generators. And it gives power to those in the community and advocates to use that information to change policies and programs for the betterment of the community. This happened year after year. And therefore, they were recognized as changers and voices in the nation because they had the expert knowledge who they trusted at the back, who is always giving them current information. So when they are going for meetings, they've informed me. So I'm sitting and as they're asking questions, I'm giving them the answers based on evidence, and therefore their ask cannot be cut short because it's powerful evidence that they themselves were even hearing for the first time. So this is what we are. It's true we would go to communities and do things, but we are not as powerful as those that are in that field. We are just supportive. But nobody can support us as researchers because this is our primary responsibility, and we have to learn to do it better. So I'm celebrating Central Office of Research that is starting this series. Like many others, we're just one of many that is building the competencies of our researchers to do what they have been called and funded to do. Yes, the federal government is already funding you because your school fees is not yours, it's subsidized extensively by the federal government. You must acknowledge and thank this. Your school fees does not cover, I tell people that care to listen, that the entire school fees, because every student in Ife, every single thing you pay, put it together, it does not cover the NEPA bill that OAU has to pay in a month. Put all your school fees, your everything together for all the students. If it pays, it will pay 1.5 months. So it's subsidized. You can make all the noise. The government subsidizes you, and you must celebrate and acknowledge that. So what is research? Let's quickly go through that. I'm going to ask you to note 4 things. The first is that it's a systematic. The second is that it's a rigorous investigation. The third is that it focuses on solving problems, either by generating new knowledge, and the fourth, validating existing knowledge. So what are the 4 things I'm going to take you through when we're looking at knowledge? Systematic, rigorous investigation, you're generating new knowledge, or you're validating existing ones. So when we say systematic, what do we mean? When you're doing research, it's methodical, it's organized, and it's structured. There is a process to it, you follow it. You follow the rules, the principles, the procedures. You don't wake up and decide something different, except there's a justification for that. It's a planned, deliberate action. It's a planned, validated, deliberate action that you do. It's not haphazard. It's a step-by-step procedure. And why you do that is so as to ensure efficiency, accuracy, and thoroughness. When I see people that are, careless, I say, you can't be a researcher because you'll be careless with the decimal points. Rather than writing 7.9, you write 9.9. Thoroughness matters. Precision is what we're talking about when we're doing research. It's well-ordered and it's comprehensive. That's what it means when we talk about systematic. When we talk about rigorous, it's about commitment to excellence, precision, intellectual integrity. Your one is one. Let 50 people, let the Nobel Prize come and redo that investigation. You will find that it's one. It doesn't change figures. It doesn't move things around because I want a p-value to be statistically significant. It doesn't sit under the 3 and does interviews of 3 people and then multiply it by 4 and say I've interviewed 12. It doesn't sit under the 3 and collect data from 20 people and then multiply it by 5 and say I've collected data from 100. It is intellectual integrity. It means what you do is reliable. You generate credible results supported by available evidence. You use methodologies that are supposed to be done. You don't use ChatGPT to generate information and then write it that you used your head to hold and on code. You are truthful to the core. That is why professors are respected, because professors have been grounded over 12 years in telling the truth while solving problems. So anywhere you go and say you're a professor, or where you stand and say you're in the academia, you are thoroughly respected for one thing: integrity. And you must cultivate that from the very beginning. Because in this institution, from undergraduate years, you're taught to do research. And it's about building integrity from the very foundation of who you are. When we're talking about research, it's not just precision, it's high-level precision, attention to details. Your dots are appropriate. There's no undermining of information. You adhere to established procedures and standards. And if you change it, you report that you changed it and why you changed it. It is not about you. Research is not about you. It's about generating knowledge to change things. It becomes the foundation for the next person to act. So you cannot create wobbly foundations for the next person to act, because once you have done it and you have published it, next person then builds on it, and that becomes the foundation for the next. So you cannot, once again, research is not about you. It's not about you establishing a p-value. It's not about you counting numbers. It's about you establishing a known based on an unknown we've been looking for. And then we can build on that known and move on forward to establishing the truth. Where there's a truth out there in the world that we're looking for, and therefore the little you do contributes to footstep. Remember, when you're doing research, you are answering an unknown. You're answering a question. It's called equipoise. We truly do not know this. And then we build on it because we're knowing little by little, and then we generate facts. And finally, fact is established as truth. Okay? So be conscious of your responsibility when you're doing research to the larger society. It's beyond you. So what do? We're either in research generating new knowledge or validating old ones. What do we do when we generate new knowledge? We're creating or producing information, insight, or understanding that had not been known or documented. We're discovering, we're uncovering, we're creating information, ideas, and perspectives, and contributing to the existing body of knowledge that enables us together, gathering this information, systematic reviews, umbrella reviews, new questions that makes us move to the next so that we can establish. It involves experimentation, analysis, observation, critical thinking, arguments, being in the conference spaces, presenting your paper, and great thinkers walking through the knowledge you're sharing and asking and authenticating it enough for them to move forward with it. So when we talk about generating new knowledge, we're talking about originality. We're saying expand the boundaries of the field. We're saying deliberate effort to explore uncharted territories. It means validating the authenticity, accuracy, and reliability of the findings. It means somebody can do what you said you did and reproduce that knowledge. It means creating something novel by building on the foundation can be on theories. The foundation can be on, conceptual frameworks. And in doing this is a collaborative effort. I had my young mentee very recently do a single author paper, and she was celebrating. I didn't respond. I've not responded till today, but my heart bled. How do we go from a world of collaboration to a world of single authorship? Nobody goes for single authorship anymore, because single authorship has a lot of problems. Number one, single authorship means you are not acknowledging the people that worked with you to do the work. There's no way you can do authentic research without collaborating with somebody. So when you're a single author, you're not acknowledging those working with you. And the second is that when you're a single author, the risk of you telling lies is very high. The risk of you manipulating information is very high. I'm not talking about collaboration where you're the only one that does it, but you collect money from 50 other people and add their names. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about collaboration where the very idea sitting on the table is generated because of great thinkers thinking. And when the result comes, the great thinkers are interpreting the results, critical thinking, innovation, creativity, and that's what changes the world. So in summary, when we're generating new knowledge, we're uncovering, we're creating information that adds understanding to the world. Is a fundamental aspect of scientific, academic, and creative endeavors that drives progress across all disciplines. The second thing you might be doing is validating existing knowledge, which is you are verifying the accuracy, reliability, and relevance of theories, concepts that had been established. Is it still applicable today? So we've had COVID-19 in 2020. Is what existed before COVID-19 the same as of now? We've had Ebola in West Africa. Is what happened before Ebola the same as at now? We've had political transition. Is what that existed before Tinubu the same as at now? You're validating the accuracy so that you're establishing a ground for us to continue to engage. If it is still reliable, and if it's not reliable again, you're giving us context to change direction. Existing knowledge remains applicable to is the existing knowledge applicable to the current context. I've created contexts that are shared. Or even in OAU, there's so many contexts that change. What is it that we need to know, even in our own environment? This is why the IBR grant, I don't know if you know, there's IBR grant that is existing in this university is dedicated to changing paradigms within the university to improve it. So if there's anybody that stands up here and says something is not working in this university, it's because you never contributed to that change. And like Professor Akiyemi noted, I was at the Central Office of Research for a year, and I worked tirelessly with Professor Akilo in TED4 to create an opening for grants for this institution. Oh, did Miss Professor Akilo go up and down? It was just to make it happen. And we created a potential of 120 IBR grants. You know what happened? Only 30 people applied. We did and ran and told noise. 30 people applied, whereas there was the opportunity to have applied for 120. It is grants for you as PhDs, senior lecturers, people, junior lecturers in this field. That was what the grant was for. And in university, Obafemi Awolowo University, the grant is to address our own context. What is the problem in Ife that we need to solve? So we can translate that research outcome immediately. We celebrate you when you get that grant. You come to floor O and you take off photograph and we share to the whole world. But you know what? When the result comes, we have no idea. The university has no idea in a way that they can translate it to action. Who's creating the gap there? If the university, at least this is not Nigeria, university gave you money, you don't take it. The ones you take, we don't know what you do with them. Who's creating the gaps? And this is what research is about. It's about ensuring the existing knowledge is sound and trustworthy, and maintaining integrity and credibility of knowledge. And if we have to make changes, let us know. This is what is called dissemination. I'm not sure you know that in ethics, it's a crime. When you generate knowledge and you do not disseminate, it is a crime. You get IBR funds, you do not come back to the university to report what we should do differently in the university, that's a crime. You do not publish it for the world to know that this has been done so that they can build on it rather than take again the limited resources in the world to do that same research. It is a crime. We might not take you to court because it's not a legal crime, but it's a moral crime. You must disseminate the knowledge. And you know, I was very recently working with my friend on clinical trials in oral health that had happened in Africa. You know, in Nigeria, they only reported global report to Nigeria had one clinical trial. And I almost fainted because I know from Obafemi Awolowo University alone, there are 3. And you know what happened? It meant that they never registered their clinical trial in the space where the world would otherwise have vested. Because when you're doing clinical trial, you must register. There are multiple places where you should register. That's what it's meant. I cried. And then they will say we are not doing work. Obafemi Awolowo University is not doing work. Africa is not doing work. Nigeria is not doing work. So we are doing work and you are not disseminating. Just not disseminating. We are doing work. So it's a crime. Not because Morenike declared it's a crime, because ethically it is a crime. The Nigerian Ethics Code tells you it is a crime. In summary, what's research? Is a systematic inquiry, an objective explanation where you generate new knowledge based on empirical evidence through critical thinking. That's my summary. It's a structured methodology, validated and peer-reviewed, documented. Nobody does research and you come and open your mouth and say you did research. But please note there's ethics to it. Don't do research without ethics clearance, whether you are in engineering or physics or arts, whatever it is. Once you're making contact with humans, dead or alive, you must get your ethics clearance. And then it's an iterative process, which means you build on even that which you yourself have done. I tell my colleagues, you've done a research for 10 years, nobody's quoted it. Even you that did the research has not quoted it. Because if you did a research, the next thing in your discussion, you would raise questions, further questions to explore. You should build on that and then put this paper as a foundation for the work you're doing. So even if you, the researcher, cannot quote your work, it is not of no relevance, then how will the world find it relevant? 10 years, you've done a piece of work and nobody has quoted it. Query that work. If your work is good and you are addressing a group in knowledge, within 2, 3, 5 years, your work will be quoted because it becomes a foundation for others to work with. So it's an iterative process, including you yourself using your finding to build on knowledge going forward. So at the end of the day, you find out that in the academia, there are tangible results. You get peer-reviewed publications, you get patents, and the world is very well going that direction. Please note, Obafemi Awolowo University is supportive of your getting patents. The TTO office is there, and the office is improving every single day. Find your way to the patent office to ensure that what you do is patented. You establish new methodologies, you establish new databases, you're in conferences and academic discourses, but intangibly, you're developing a high-skilled workforce. And this is why this meeting is very important. This yearly event, it addresses a culture of skepticism that you do not just accept things for who you are, for just everything that they are. It's intelligent thinking. I get amazed, when people circulate what is obviously wrong. They circulate and say Trump said idiot. I'm not saying he doesn't say that. I mean, he's that black. But there are things that you can almost read and know that this is not based. And that's because when you have critical thinking ability, you know what you can almost comfortably decipher what is AI generated and what is not AI generated, what is truth and what is not truth, what you should believe and build on, or what you should critically evaluate. Because there are things that are obviously not logical. And that's because you have ability to have critical thinking. And the more we grow people with critical thinking, the better it is for this nation. That is why in high income country, you have even secondary school students thinking critically, because even at that level, they are doing the assignments. They're not being dictated to. They go onto the laptops, they search and they do term paper. There are even secondary schools in Nigeria that are, top. You find they're already doing that. The students can ask why. Change your toothbrush every 3 months. Why? Use fluoridated toothpaste. Why? This is how we generate new knowledge. Why? Walk and jump 3 times a day. Why? I watched one sketch one day, and there were people moving in and out. It was actually an experimentation. So the first person just comes, sit down, stand up, and every other person came in, except one black person who just sat and was looking at everybody copying every other person. Of course, the experiments kind of show that what the first person does, every other person will do it blindly. When they did that black person, I said, this black person is a Nigerian. I can bet my life. This person is a Nigerian. So it's, why now? Why must you stand up? It's the critical thinking. And that's what makes us Nigerian being, exceptional around the world. You are a Nigerian. You must know who you are and stay true to your identity. and bring that identity positively into the academia, where you're asking why in a way that is not destructive, but why as a critique, or why as a critique, that is wanting to look for answers to solution, not assuming that your perspective is all there is to the world. So how does it impact society? And I'll share about 4 points. One, economic growth and innovation. That is what happens. You have new industries. Internet is a product of research. Biotechnology, including the new grades we're talking about, GPS, are all products of academic research. High-tech jobs evolve, and research universities are hub for talent and innovation, attracting companies and creating startups. I am proud to say Ife is one of the topmost startup creators in Africa. I think we're second to South Africa or so, if not, yeah, I think so. But we're at one of the top at one time. In Nigeria, we're top. But that is about changing because other places are starting to put that in place. We must, and this is where the money for the universities come. We must join that force because IFE has created that space. We solve problems, and that's how we grow, drive economic growth. And when there's economic growth, there is development of nations. It's about health and well-being. Everything we do, whether it's in physics or in chemistry or in arts and music, it's about health and wellness. From vaccine breakthroughs to policy guidelines, information on nutrition, exercise, pandemic response, to psychology and sociology. It's all about health and well-being at the end of the day. It's about understanding our world, preserving our histories, where archaeologies are dug. Now there's so much about culture and indigenous knowledge knowing. It's only changed because researchers started to show the power of culture in making people well and truly, connected. There's evidence to show that social support is stronger than the medicines we take in keeping people alive for many years. So research helps us to understand our world. It informs policy, sociology, political science. It helps government tackle poverty, inequality, climate change. And it is a critical citizenry issue where society values research. I was in Brown's University in Rhode Island once, and then my mentor was there, the sister. The first thing the sister engaged me with when I was the new research. I was shocked. These societies, they're everyday people, not researchers. Wait on the research you come out with to be able to move things forward. They hear it on CNN and BBC. Where is our local research and our local newspaper? They want to engage with us as researchers, we run away from them. And then they fill the space with myths and misconceptions, and our people consume that. We must be in those spaces as community engagement service, engaging with media, with our research, to enable people know the truth and work with the truth. Otherwise, they'll work with the myths that others are creating in that space. That sounds like real, but it's not real. How well are we engaging in this space? It's about solving global problems. Global problems, local relevance, climate change. We must develop renewable energy, reduce the carbon footprint, sustain agricultural practices, ensure food security. There's drought, there's flood happening in this country. What are we doing as researchers to fill the space? And sustainable development as a way to balance economic growth and environmental protections. In effect, the academia affects the society by providing knowledge, skilled graduates. Somebody called me yesterday about a graduate who's looking for work with me or something. I said, what kind of graduate is this? Who's graduated, you've done masters. Throughout this 5 years, you don't know that you have to be planning for what you want to do. You're now looking for Toro Kobo. That doesn't make sense in this age and era. At least you can be generating in things and you can grow from there. We're in 20th century, you can't be waiting on federal government job to eat. And that's because when you think critically, look at all the problem there is. There's so much problem. Keen to eat young and grow and do breakthrough innovations. The society itself also impacts the academia by providing funding. We must be creative in resolving the fund, getting the funds. I was look at Alakija and what she did in Osun State University. She has funds. People, the academia went to her and they got the funds and made a difference. They can provide funds. There are philanthropists there. We can't drive. When we show we're important, they will come looking for you with funds. They will share the real world problems they have and enable us to find the research question. And we then offer the real world data, or they bring the real world data to us. I'm working with um, um, communities of HIV, TB malaria people that generates data, and we're translating them that research. I am amazed. They're just new findings that never existed that came with working with this real world data. There's real world data everywhere. The hospitals are generating EMR. Nigerian surveillance, what is I? We do IPPS, we do a Nigerian demographic health survey. Do you know what we can get from all those data? MCH, kinds of data in this Nigerian space. And then we are so poor in findings, yet so rich in data. Real world data. We have to do better. That's my challenge for us. Of course, there are others to overcome, but they are all overcomable. Funding pressure, increasing competition for the limited grants. But we can't create grants. You are here. You can create grants of $500. Look for people to make those grants available and solving problems. But then when I saw what's this group, Royal Society, that started this 5,000 grants, it never was like that. People are giving 5,000 grants, $2,000 and $250 grant, $500 grant, $1,000 grants, and it's making an impact. IPR is making an impact. It is 5 million and 4 million grants. It's true there's funding gap, but there is funding. There's funding. I have a platform where I'm sending out grant information. There's funding. There's funding. But even then, if you're using your out-of-pocket funding, do it well. It's not an excuse to do rubbish. Like I said in Ife, we don't do publish or perish. We say publish or flourish. That's our own principle. Because there's every ground for you to do better with the result. There's an ecosystem to support you. Of course, in other places where publish or perish is the keyword, of course, it leads to questionable research practices where everybody just wants promotion. Is a human drive, nobody's fault. There's a problem of accessibility. Public trust also is starting to get eroded because we're telling lies with our research and people are finding out. But we must also ensure that as we're doing this, we protect intellectual property. You must learn about intellectual property. If the next time IPTTO is doing a program, go learn, because there are many things you're producing and there's no intellectual property. I was right over it. I was reviewing some award application yesterday, and I found, we do Kerry's risk assessment. This person in India did it and had intellectual property rights. I was shocked. This is a research I will do and just publish. But he went and put intellectual property rights. It's publicly accessible, but intellectual property right is there. And it is his right. That's a source of income. So we must know this. Let me say also, many of us will come up with the issue of APC fee as APC is a limitation. That's not true. In the low middle income, we are better positioned to getting APC waivers for our journals. Every single Springer Nature journal is APC waived for people in low middle income countries, including Nigeria. Every single, and go look at Springer Nature. They have over 300 journals, well over. You from Obafemi Awolowo University, you from Nigeria, have waiver there. So there's nothing you want in the field that is not in Springer Nature. Your microbiology, your arts, it's there. And the worst thing is that even those ones that have APC fees, if you say I'm from low middle income countries, they waive. They waive. Of course, the headache I'm starting to see in that space is that Nigeria is not low income. Nigeria is tagged as low middle income. So we might not in every place, or not BMCO, not Springer Nature, or Springer Nature is free, but in other places they might remember that you are Nigeria and you're not low-income country. For example, last year in Plus Global Health, Nigeria was free, but this year we tried to publish there at the $600. Okay, because they've now remembered that Nigeria is no low income, but low middle income. But what am I saying? I see colleagues trying to get people from low middle income countries as co-researchers so that they can get a waiver. They don't have waivers. We have waivers. That's a point of inequality. So anybody opening their mouth and saying APC is a limitation, that's a lie. And then the second thing you must know is that when you have your grant, you must put APC fee in your grants. Don't get a grant and then be looking for waiver. Put it in your grants. I'm almost finishing. That this is the path to science. Please know that open access becomes very important. Look for when you're publishing, go to places where your journal can be freely accessible. That's about making knowledge freely accessible. And please know that your data must be shared in open spaces. This is the way to go. Communicate your work. Publication is just one way. You can use blogs. Get onto blogs. You must be on social media spaces. When I was dean, I was looking for the profile of people to write, when you're dean, when you have to do promotion, you have to suggest names of people and a little profile that you must send to the vice chancellor. I was shocked. I'm almost fainted. I was looking for the profile of my colleagues. It didn't exist. So who are these people in the 20th century that you cannot find them on social media? Imagine I was going to give them an award. That was the end. You must be in the public space. Not only are you in this public space, you must be disseminating your information as blogs in those space. Engage with others. When you're in that space and there's some discussion, engage. Engage, not just click like, discuss. Okay. And the goal at the end of the day is about making the whole process of research transparent and trustworthy. In conclusion, research in academia is the seed for the society's future. The society does not grow well without the academia through its research work, doing better at what it is doing. Okay, it cultivates the critical thinkers and innovators amongst us. And the relationship between academia and society is so fundamental that growth and development of nations do not happen without it. So therefore, investing in research is investing in a more prosperous, healthy, and enlightened world. And to say that you as postgraduate students, you as undergraduate students, can contribute actively to that, but the bit you do in ensuring you generate new knowledge or validating existing one. On that note, I want to say thank you. And once again, thanks for inviting me. Over to you, Dimeji.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you very much, Ma, for this. I'm speechless. It's like a bombshell. I've listened to you. I've been listening to you for more than 2 years, but this is new and this is also really uh intriguing. I'm grateful. We are grateful. We say thank you very much for these very, very high level first edition of this series. Um I think it's time to ask people who have questions to use the raise hand icon or to type their questions in the chat. But however, I think it's also good to get a comment. I saw the provost of the postgraduate college earlier, but I think he is not in the room again. But then if he joins again, I would very much he would recognize him. I want to invite Professor Akoniaki for his reaction or to say something while we wait for questions, if there is any. Professor.
Thank you, Dimeji. Just a quick one. First, to appreciate Professor Okwang. What do you expect from Professor Okwang anyway? He can always be the best. Well, thank you particularly for taking this route, this perspective. For me also is new. And I think there are two key messages I got from this. Number one is that as academia, we should stop pointing accusing finger either to government or to leaders. That those things we are complaining about are part of what we are calling researcher. That we should find a way, around it in our research towards solving that problem. And I took that very highly, that to continue to blame our government for our not doing well in research is not appropriate. That also should be part of what we research. And if we do well, the grants, the opportunities will come to us. I subscribe to that also, 100%. The second point again I got is that roadblock is not an academic language. I can't do it. It's not an academic language. That it's part of our calling, to therefore find a way. So the research is problem solving. So when you also have a problem, it's part of how you show, that you're a researcher. If you are able to think through, solving those problems. So I necessarily want to take that, as my own personal dose, I'll be taking that pill every morning now. Thank you so much, Professor Okwang, for those I mean, brilliant word. I mean, I took those two as my own cup of tea, from that presentation. I don't know what others take, but again, that's the beauty, when you have a scholar, who is well traveled across many disciplines, providing this kind of process. So thank you so much. I didn't over to you.
Thank you very much, sir. I haven't seen any question in the chat yet, but then I see that the Director, Intellectual Property and Technology Transfer Office, Professor Grace Ogunlusi, is also here. Please, Ma, we would want to get a brief reaction from you. You can unmute, Ma.
Okay, good morning. I really want to thank Professor Obong. I'm happy I joined today's meeting. And like I put it in my chat, that you have really, really touched on key issues that researchers need to consider. You've spoken absolute truth to all of us, which I think we need to go back and reflect on. I wish we can have the recording shared with more people, but I must thank you very much, Professor Okong, for sharing with us today, for giving us this challenge and for giving us the clear direction as to where to go. And like the DVC said, we cannot be blaming the system or the nation for every problem. And sincerely, it's been a very wonderful and insightful time with you, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think the important thing is that we all go back and reflect on this presentation and do better. Thank you. I don't have any question. Thank you very much, ma'am.
All right, thank you very much, Ma, and thank you. Yes, so this is also being live streamed on the Central Office of Research YouTube page. The link to the YouTube page will be dropped in the chat shortly. And after now, we cannot just go to that YouTube page and access the recording. And then I also want to encourage that we please subscribe to that YouTube page so that it can work. You can be able to use many of the features that YouTube has made available to us. We have a question before we go. Sorry. So the question is, let me read the entire statement. Thank you so much, Ma. May God bless your knowledge. I always think all these AI, machine learning, data science are the results of academia doing this deep research. Please, Ma, I think there is not that deep interaction between industry and academia in Nigeria. How can we solve that? Prof. Ma, maybe you want to respond quickly to this.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'll acknowledge my boss, Professor Akiemi. He stays my boss. He was my boss at COR, and he's still my boss as DVC R&D, and he's still my friend, bossy friend, who commands me to just get things done. But I really appreciate you. I thank you, my friend and sister, and my co-worker in the Vine, Professor Ogunlusi. Thanks everybody for your kind words also. I only poured my heart, but like you noted, it's truth that we all have to work together. I also hear truths from every other person as they speak. Yes, in terms of I think interactions with the industry. I tell you, OAU is working at that. It's a bi-directional thing, and once the industry recognizes the place for you, rather than importing support, and that's what the industry has been doing so far in Nigeria. They've been importing support in the absence of a vacuum. Things can change. I think one critical example is University of Port Harcourt that has established a very viable link with the petroleum industry. So they had worked with the petroleum industry. They had gotten the petroleum industry support extensively. Things happening in that university, so that the university answers that question. rather than them chunking out things that are not relevant. In OAU, there also is, you started to see that paradigm shift. I must congratulate what is happening at IPTTO. I also would congratulate the university effort at strengthening the entrepreneurship center. Whether it's responding to the push is another thing, but there's effort, conscious effort, establishing that if it has power in the startup space, and therefore it is empowering that place to do what it's supposed to do. I will celebrate also our effort in driving for the betterment through the OAU STARS program, and that's already in its third year and already moving in its fourth year. But what you see in deepening that relationship is the research fair that is starting and in its third year, bringing academia to meet with the industry. Last year was really superb, and I learned things are already taken forward even by the IPTT office. But these are just beginnings. There's so much we can do together, and I think that's what the Central Office of Research and my very own Vice Chancellor is calling for. One man cannot do this. You have intelligence that you must bring to the table that allows us to work. The Vice Chancellor is very sensitive to this. Write memos. We sit down in our places and grumble, but we never put a memo forward to enable the university to act. If you do know and understand ways we can better accelerate our engagement with the industry, send a memo to the Vice Chancellor, send a memo to the DVC, and see how it will take to act. I'm not praising them. I've been in spaces to know that memos motivate actions. As Dean, as HOD, as Central Office Officer, I have seen it. But you don't get those memos. You grumble on the ground and think the Vice Chancellor is going to hear. How is he going to hear? So, in effect, I've gone beyond your question. I apologize. But yes, it can happen deeper. Universities are already working. UNILAG is an excellent example of that. IFE is working in that traction. Know that we are at a disadvantage in the fact that we're not in the industry space. However, we are working at excelling in startups. This is our own space, entrepreneurship space. And we're doing well working in that direction. We can do better. If you can think around how to do better, please send a memo. If you can do better within your space, do it. But in IFE, our focus is on entrepreneurship, okay, rather than industrial growth, like you'll find in Port Harcourt and Lagos. I hope I answered you, but of course, the DVC and Professor Ogunlosi is here to add to that. Thank you. Over.
Thank you very much, Ma. Before I invite the DVC to speak, there is one more question. That is the single authorship aspects of the presentation. So the question is that does the data analyst guy or lab scientist that got paid for their job have to be added to publication? So
No, I think, yes, let me take that because our time, we have just 5 minutes. Our time is up. The thing about multiple authorship is the creativity. To say that one person thought through a concept the brilliance is that multiple people come to and think through a concept for your research. That is what we're talking about, not the paid data analyst, not the paid lab person. That's not it. Of course, if they have value as co-thinkers, for example, when I am doing big time research, population study, my statistician is there at the conceptualization, not that I send data to him to analyze. My statistician is there from the conceptualization because it's going to help me conceptualize how to collect that data properly so that he can analyze it. Not when I've collected it, then he's struggling with analysis because instead of me entering 111, I collected average of age instead of writing age out, and then he would do the average if there's a need for. Whereas he would want that paper that data age to come as string as numericals, and then he does it, treats it as a continuous variable, rather than a grouped variable. So depending on where the big thing about multiple authorship is the conceptualization, not the add-ons. I hope I answered your question. So what you're looking for is the brilliance. When we are together, we're planning, thinking through everything together. One person can't do that. And then when we get the result, whoever is touching the computer and sending the results, we are thinking through together to interpret the result. That is the brilliance we're talking about. I think I've answered that. And I think the last question, let me take it. I would also, my first ever publication was made possible via COR training. I attended. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for crediting the COR. Thank you. We appreciate the acknowledgement. Over to you, Dimeji. We have 3 more minutes. I think at this point, I want to thank everybody from my end. Thanks for your kind words and seeing you being part of this excellent series of training put together by COR. I'm sure you won't be the same, and look forward to you sharing the same testimony like Samson Okeleye, who noted that the COR training enabled him to have his first publication. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ma. And I think to round it off and then to close for today, let me once again invite the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research, Innovation and Development. Professor, help us close for today. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you. Again, let me first start by appreciating those who work behind the scene to put all this together. The team led by Professor Jide Odu and Dimeji, and then also to appreciate the Provost, Postgraduate College. I also had the introductory remark by Dimeji that the Postgraduate Association are also collaborating on this. For me, that's very good because, as Professor Opong rightly mentioned, it's a way for all of us to think how our research make impact. So I want to sincerely appreciate those who work behind the scene to make this happen. And for those of us who have joined this as early morning tea, it's like Friday now, from 8 to 9. There is tea for those of you who like tea, coffee for those of you who like coffee, and can be a beverage for those who are still taking, is it Milo now or Ovaltine with sugar milk. So please always tune in 8 to 9 every Friday, except there's I don't know, but we'll let you know if it will not happen, but we want to make this happen. But it won't just be about those who work behind the scene for this. We want all of us to work together to make this to continue to happen. Lastly, because I have 30 seconds left now, is to appreciate the first speaker for this year in person of our own dear Professor Oluwatoyin Morenike Upong, Ekiti-born professor, but we have traveled around the world, a global scholar from the Bethlehem of Ekiti. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. And as my professor taught us, he said research is an unending business. So we continue to have this conversation. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, and bye, everyone. Same link every Friday. And then, as the DVC has said, please tune in. We don't want to go beyond 9 a.m. So I want to say thank you for joining and see you next week.